and today I want to speak a little bit about why I got into Amazon FBA and ask you the question, what are you looking to get out of selling on Amazon? When I started, it was 2014, and I was already in business for myself. I'd left my corporate job in 2011 and went out to run a business on my own. Now, the first couple of years, things went fairly well, and then towards the third year, I really started to struggle. And the industry I was in was dominated by much larger companies, and it made it very difficult for me to compete. I was able to scrape by and make a living, but I was working around the clock and losing a lot of big jobs to my competition. And I knew that I needed something better and more sustainable if I was going to make this work, or I'd have to go back and look for another job, which I really didn't want to do. And so I began looking around on the internet, and most of the stuff I came across just seemed too good to be true, and probably was. But I got a promotion actually from I forget who it was at the time, but they were promoting their course and selling on Amazon FBA, and I thought, yeah, at first I dismissed it, but then they sent me like 3 other emails, and I don't even know how I got on their list, but they got my attention, and I started thinking, well, wait a minute, maybe I can participate in this Amazon thing as a Canadian. And so I looked into it and realized that, yeah, this is a real opportunity, and people are making money selling on Amazon, and I can do it as a Canadian too. And they had an Amazon Canada, which you could sell on as well. I didn't realize you could sell on Amazon Canada at the time. And so I dived right in, and I started devouring as much content as I could. And I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I have to test this. And that's one of the things I've always done with any opportunity. I test the waters. I want to know if the opportunity is real and if it's going to work for me. And so I'd heard you could sell books on Amazon, especially textbooks. So my wife had been to university a few years prior, and I looked around her house and I found a few of her textbooks. And I downloaded the free Amazon Seller app and registered for a free Amazon selling account, the basic account, and scanned her textbook's barcode, and these things came up. Some of them, it looked like they had a rank of 2 million and didn't look like it was selling at all. It was outdated. But a couple of them, actually about 4 of them, I believe it was, came back with a decent, what I understood to be a rank at the time. I'd read a little bit about sales rank. And the pricing on them was like $85 each. I think one was $100. And I'm thinking, geez, do people pay this much for textbooks? I guess they do. So I thought, okay, here's proof of concept. So I boxed them all up, learned how to create my first shipment, and I had to create an account with UPS at the time, because when I started Amazon, I'm old school here, Amazon didn't have partnered shipping in Canada. You have to buy your own shipping at full rate. So I had to pay for UPS shipping from British Columbia, and it shipped all the way to Ontario. And these books are pretty heavy, so I think it cost me like $40 or $50 in inbound shipping. So if you ever think your shipping is expensive now, try the old days. Anyway, I sent these things in, and within a few weeks, they'd sold, and I made a few $100 profit, and that was all the proof I needed. I'm like, you know what? If I can learn this concept from scratch without knowing anything about Amazon to date, and make a few $100 from some textbooks I found lying around the house, what else is possible? So I got really excited, and I knew this was the business opportunity I'd always dreamed of. When I was a teenager and I was working at my dad's business, he gave me the crappiest jobs to teach me work ethic. I'd work in his shop, cleaning up the shop and dealing with metalworking and grinding steel and breathing in all the dust and fumes. We didn't really have very good safety standards back then, I'll tell you. But I used to dream of, back then I used to buy all these entrepreneur magazines, and I'd read through them, and you'd see all these ads for money-making opportunities, and I think, geez, I want to start a business one day where I can have a mail order business where people send me a check or give me their credit card information for my package on how they can make money online too. And that was sort of my early pre-internet, I guess you could say, foray into the dream business, where it'd be like a semi-passive income and you'd share your knowledge with other people. And when Amazon came along, I knew that this could be the opportunity I've been looking for. And the real appeal for me was the fact that, I'd sold things on eBay in the past, just casually, not as a business, but selling old iPhones and gadgets, because I'm a gadget guy. But the problem was you had to deal with customers, and you had to run to the post office and ship things out yourself. And I really didn't want a business that involved that. But Amazon, with FBA, took care of all of that for me. I thought, this is great. And so I began expanding my business a little into first retail arbitrage, which for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, it's basically going into retailer stores like Walmart, using your smartphone and scanning barcodes on products on the shelf, and the Amazon app will tell you if that item's selling on Amazon, what the current rank is, aka how well is it selling, what the current buy box price is for that item, and then what your net cost would be after all Amazon's fees are taken out, and then you would subtract your cost to buy the good in the store, and whatever the difference is, less a little bit of buffer for your inbound shipping, would be your profit. And so I had limited success with that. I went around some stores here in Canada. I went to Winners, and I found some clearance sections at Toys R Us. I was able to find a little bit, and I sort of plodded along. I tried my hand at what was sort of quasi-private label. I bought some cheap products in Alibaba. They actually sold fairly well. I was buying these things for like 30 cents each and selling them for 25 Canadian at one point, until I realized that they're a knockoff of a brand name and I could probably get in trouble for selling them, so I stopped doing that in a hurry. But I got frustrated because I was seeing growth, and I think I got up to like $2,000 a month on Amazon.ca. And then I realized, you know what, sales are just too slow here, and I can't find enough inventory doing retail arbitrage. And so I decided, I was determined at that point, that I needed to expand further and sell in the US. Now, at that point, you had to register a separate account to sell in the US. It wasn't a unified account like now. Like today, when you register for an Amazon account, you get access to the US and the Canadian market. Back then, you had to create a separate account to sell on .com. And I really didn't know where to start. I was concerned about all the laws, the rules, the regulations, how to get products across the border, would there be tax implications, and I felt really overwhelmed. So I spent literally hundreds of hours researching how to get onto Amazon.com and went through a ton of frustration. I got so much conflicting information. You always hear people tell you, why would anyone pay for an ebook or a course? Everything you can find is out there for free. That's true, but what's your time worth and what's your sanity worth? Believe me, I've been through it, and I can tell you a lot of the information's outdated or incorrect or flat out wrong, and you don't really know who to trust. So if I had had someone at that point that had a how-to guide on how to sell in the US as a Canadian, I'd have paid for that happily. And anyway, as you probably know by now, I was able to figure it out. People in our group, I'd started this Facebook group in 2015. People started joking, saying, "Hey, Duncan, you should write an ebook on how to sell on Amazon." I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea, maybe. And people kept asking me. And so finally, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should. So I spent a few months putting this thing together, launched it on March the 5th, 2016. And within the first day, I had like 200 sales. My watch, I had a little smartwatch at the time, and it would ding every time I got a PayPal sale. It was like, wow, this is incredible. So a lot of Canadians wanted to know how to sell in the US like I'd done. I also went to a trade show in 2015 called the ASD Las Vegas, and I dabbled in wholesale. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but figured, hey, I'm going to jump in with both feet like I typically do with most of my ventures. And I was able actually to convince several wholesalers to let me represent them on Amazon. Now, I have a background in sales, and I've dealt with suppliers and my corporate job prior to this from the year 2000 up until really 2014, because I was still running another business doing the same thing. So I had a bit of an advantage in that I knew how to speak to suppliers. For someone with no experience, it might be a little more difficult to do, but I was able to get on some wholesale accounts, and just one of those accounts literally transformed my business to the point where within 6 months of starting selling on Amazon FBA, I was able to officially call this my full-time income, albeit it was a modest income at the time, but it was enough to keep the lights on, and I knew I could grow it and scale it from there.